Hey everyone, happy Thursday. I wanted to jump on this live QA, well, not QA, just, regular live, real quick to discuss about websites, just a little bit. Um, I want to talk a little bit why a website is important for your business and can you do business without a website? And then most importantly, I want to list or give you a list of 9 of the kind of the biggest and the most typical design issues and errors that I see on websites. So before I jump into talking about this topic, why am I the best person right now to talk about this with you? For one, I have a very sort of unique background in design. I have lengthy experience in crafting brands and branding, brand strategy and visuals for businesses. But I also have worked in UX. I'm also a UX designer, and UX stands for user experience, which is commonly tied to digital products, software, and websites. So I can't help when I go to websites, I start immediately analyzing, is the stuff here working or not? But I also have that brand experience, so I look at the things from both of that lens. Bear with me. I want to first kind of outline why websites are important. And like I said, can you do business without a website? Let's start with, can you do business without a website? Well, you can. The truth is that you can. It really depends on your business model. Websites are important. I recommend everyone to have one. I personally think if you have a business, you should have one, but it's not necessary. I personally know people who have successful businesses without websites. These are typically smaller businesses with very, what we call warm audiences. So these are people that they have followed them maybe on social media for a very long time, or this could be a sort of a smaller brick and mortar store in a small town somewhere where all the customer or the clientele is expected to come from the blocks around this brick and mortar. So you can, of course, have a successful business without a website. But why do I think, like I said, I think everyone should have a website. If you have a business, you should have a website. And why do I think it's important? Okay, so one thing, like I mentioned, that you could probably get away without if you're going small. If you're going to grow and scale, you're definitely going to want to have one. And that's one of the reasons is that you're going to start to grow presence online, grow your brand, grow visibility. So for one, your business needs a home in the digital world. So you could have a physical office even, or like a brick and mortar, as I mentioned, but your business also needs a home, not just in the physical world, also in the digital world. Like you need an address and place that people can go to online, turn to. Well, you're saying that, but I have my Instagram, I have my Facebook, business page or whatever. True that. If you have that, that's all great and good. You should have that. But, trends and rules and, terms and conditions of Facebook and Instagram and whatnot change constantly. So what if one day, if social media is your only platform, what if one day Facebook decides to shut down your Facebook page, your business page? So I've had witnessed those stories. So I know people that this has happened to them. Either Facebook denied them the right to change something on their page, saying, no, you can't change, this is now who you are. And even if they wanted to, they couldn't. Or Facebook suddenly denied the right from them to, for instance, create Facebook ads. So without much explanation, sometimes people were successful in kind of getting their pages and their whatever ad accounts open, but sometimes not. So Facebook, for example, just as an example, Instagram is owned by Facebook, could happen the same thing. Etsy, could change their terms and conditions, and suddenly you can't sell your products there anymore. So most important, like I mentioned, you need a home that you make the rules in. So the shop is open on your website as long as you choose to keep it open. No one will come and say, close this. Well, of course, you have to pay your hosting and whatnot bills. If you don't pay those invoices, then they will close it. But if you, do business well and you respect those rules, you will have a home and your shop stays open regardless of what Facebook or other social media platforms do. Also, so well-crafted, professional-looking website can increase your credibility, your authority, and influence. So the critical point here was the well-crafted and professional-looking. So while a great website will reinforce your brand image and introduce you to the world as the professional that you are, a poor-looking, not-so-great website can kind of turn against you. And to help you with that, I'm going to list those biggest design errors and mistakes that I see out there at the end of this video. So soonish, bear with me a little bit more. So, and of course, with a website that you design or you hire someone to design for you, the other added pro is that it's completely customizable. You can make it look like your brand. You can make it look like you. You choose what goes into that template, what content, what kind of things is there. If we again compare with social media, everybody's Facebook page is going to look pretty much the same. You, of course, with images, you can make it look a little bit different, but the template is the same. The content you can put there is the same. So you don't really have that much power over changing that stuff. But when you build your own website, you decide what's in there. So it's up to you to make it serve your business, sell your products and services the way you want. And of course, again, reinforce your brand with your brand look and feel and messaging. Of course, your website is your calling card. So it's a place where people can come, they find more information. So basically, your website is open nonstop. When you're sleeping, your website's still up there. If someone on the other side of the world wants to find more information, they can go to your website and find it there. So it's good to have this additional sort of avenue for providing more information. So you can also, websites are great in the sense that it's as big or as small as you choose it to be. So you could have sections for more detailed information, more kind of detailed longer stories that you want to put. For instance, Instagram, I think it's like 2,500 characters or something like that. There's a character limit of how long things you can post there. So especially if you have a blog where you tell really cool stories about that support your business, your messaging, your mission and your vision and so forth, in your website, those stories can be as long as you want. And I believe like Google SEO favors blog posts that are longer, like longer than 2,000-3,000 characters or something. It may have changed since the last time I checked it, but the longer the better, typically for Google, for the Google SEO. Okay, and then of course, if you do marketing and promotions and campaigns and paid promotions across different platforms, you might have separate landing pages for those and whatnot. It's always good to have the website, your website that kind of hosts your promotions and supports that information. So if you have a separate landing page, I don't recommend that you do a link in there that that takes them to your homepage, because you want to keep them in that landing page and you want to have them buy into whatever it is that you're selling there or opt in to whatever it is that you're suggesting. But on your thank you page, after they've done what you want them to do, you can direct them to your website to get more information about you. Or sometimes people will bounce, they won't sign up, they won't buy from you, but afterward they will go and they'll Google you and they'll be like, well, is this reliable, trustworthy? And if the only thing online that I find about you is that one single landing page that tried to sell me something, I don't know like how trustworthy that is. And again, the trustworthy is the key factor here. So again, if you're selling to very warm audience, people who already know, like, and trust you, it's less important. If you're selling to cold audiences with paid promotion, it's more critical, the whole know, like, and trust factor. So they might not trust you without a little bit deeper information on who you are and why are you in business. Okay, and like I mentioned, again, if you design your website well, it does reinforce your brand image. But the key here is with design well, of course, you have to respect like your brand colors and your brand fonts and whatnot, and the messaging. And of course, you'll hopefully have your logo somewhere at the top. So those are like the basic building blocks of the good website design, the look and feel, so to speak. rather than the structure of the pages. But let's talk a little bit about the 9 most typical design errors or mistakes that I typically see on websites. So these are not necessarily in the order of importance or anything, but they are all of them are more or less equally typical. I see them frequently. And if you have all of these issues on your website, your website will come out as unprofessional, and it might hurt your image. If you have just 1 or 2 of these, it's going to be easy for you to fix. Hopefully you don't have any, and you can be like, yeah, I have a great website. Okay, so number 1, the logo is illegible, either just on the mobile version. By the way, did you guys know that more than half of the world's traffic online and the World Wide Web today is on mobile devices? So when I say that logo is illegible on mobile, if someone shrugs and thinks, who cares, it's just a mobile phone. Well, most people today use mobile phone to browse websites. And when I go to the website on my mobile phone and the logo is so tiny at the corner, someone didn't really try to scale it properly in the design process to check, does it actually scale well in the small sizes, and it becomes illegible, and it's kind of like a little bit a downer immediately. But this problem, sometimes it's not just on mobile devices. Sometimes you go to just on your laptop or whatever, you go to a website and the logo is tiny, it's illegible, or it's tiny and it's illegible because of that, or it is just plain illegible because they used a font or a script of some kind that it's difficult to read, or it's so pixelated that I can't read it. So that is one of the most typical issues that I see. Number 2, that is quite, you would think it's surprising that it happens, but it's not or it's fairly frequent actually. People have multiple versions of their logos that are completely different. This usually happens if someone has designed, maybe they designed themselves or they had someone else to design a logo, and then a little bit later maybe they redesigned, and excuse me, half of the pages they forgot to actually update it. So what happens is that the old logo is popping out in half the pages somewhere because they put it in a footer, but they also put it in the header, and maybe they put it in some sidebar and they forgot to update it in different places. So I think I've seen even websites that have 3 different logos it's not just like a variation, like one is landscape and one is like a portrait mode. It's like completely different logo. It's clearly for the same business, but looks completely different. Number 3, and this is maybe hands down the most common, inconsistent use of color and fonts. So pretty typical situation is that someone chooses too many fonts. So they choose 4 different fonts, and then they start using it across their website, and halfway through, because they didn't build a proper system, they forget where they used each of those fonts. And 4 is too many unless you have very strict rules how you use them. So then because people associate expectations to certain styles, let's say that you always see this very large, bolder font style used for headlines. Well, next time when I'm going to see that same style, I'm going to assume it's a headline again. But if people use those inconsistently, next time I use it, well, it's not a headline. Well, what is it then? It's going to make the entire reading experience challenging. The other one is color. So people use too many colors and they use them inconsistently. So somewhere a background for a pull quote is yellow, and later they use yellow for some other different reason. So we also associate meaning with color. So if I use them inconsistently, similarly, it makes it a confusing experience, because after I see it used in one way, I'm going to start to expect that it's going to be used the same way throughout, or that the meaning, every time I see it, the meaning would be the same. And when it's not, that's distracting. So to use them inconsistently is a problem. The other one that's pretty common is, even if you use them consistently, if you just use too many fonts and too many colors, that can be very challenging and distracting as well. And it becomes what I lovingly call a fruit salad. You have too many things going on at the same time. Number 6 is the font just in general is difficult to read. So this is very typical for script fonts. So there are lots of beautiful script fonts, but not all of them will work for longer sentences, for instance. It may have looked nice on your logo when there was just 1 or 2 words, but now you have decided to use it on headlines, for instance, and some of your headlines will wrap on 2 lines or 3 lines or whatever, and suddenly it is burdensome to read. And some scripts are just plain hard to read, even if there's 1 word. The other issue with legibility is that the font size is too small. So this is often goes for the body copy. And some fonts are not, because they are all kind of designed, there's no one size fits all necessarily. So like if you say that, well, I like to give a recommendation that don't go smaller than 14 pixels, but it's not always that cut and dry. So in some other font, 14 pixels might be bigger, and then some different font, 14 pixels is so small that it's difficult to read. So I always recommend that you test your fonts with mobile device as well to see how they render on phone. Is it easy to read if the font size is too small and the reading experience becomes burdensome? I mean, I hope that all your audience have good eyes, but sometimes it's also a matter of having older audiences with difficulties with seeing and stuff like that. So of course, try to think about who is your audience, who's your reader, are they going to be able to see? Okay, so then number 7, photos are poorly lit or pixelated. So this is also very typical. Sometimes people will invest and buy one really beautiful stock photo, and the rest of them is just whatever they can find from their own computer, taken with their own phone or whatever. Poorly lit photos look yellowish, dark, depressing, and if it's poorly lit, it can become pixelated. So this entire topic is too long for to discuss how to take good photos. The rule of thumb I say is that natural light is your best friend. Go near a window or go outside entirely. Of course, professional photographer is your best friend if you can afford it. If you can't, try to get a higher quality camera and natural light. Okay. Then this is more specific. So, or the 2 last ones are more specific. And maybe something that most people won't necessarily spot, but I spot because I'm a UX designer, and it is distracting to me. So hero area. Hero area is the area at the top of your page where you usually have a big promotion on your home page. It might have a picture of you, or a large headline, call to action, something like that. So in some cases in those hero areas, and the people, if you use like a WordPress theme that has one of those hero, like kind of the template already has it, you just plop an image there and plop some picture or some text over the picture, and then it has been done automatically or it has created so that it automatically is responsive across different devices, and the background image is either zoomed or cropped off to support different kind of viewports and different kind of screens. So what happens sometimes, I see this, is that people put into that picture, that hero area picture, they put a beautiful portrait of themselves sitting in their office, and it's been beautifully framed so that they sit at one side and they have like empty wall behind them and the text sits nicely. And of course, because people build their websites on desktops, they modeled it so that on desktop it looked beautiful. Excuse me. But then, because websites today are responsive, if I start to make that browser window smaller or more narrow, or I look at it from my phone, depending on how the template was created, half of that person's face may have been cut off. So to do that kind of hero areas where there's a person that is in some sort of hero role, so maybe yourself, in that hero area, to guarantee to make sure that your face is not cropped off weirdly in some cases, there are some tricks. You could have 2 images where, this is actually what I do on my website. I have 2 images, myself on one, and the background is a different image, and they move differently. My own image always stays in the viewport, and the background image is the one that's scaled or cropped. Or then you just have to make sure that the image always scales down in size and the person stays in the picture rather than is cropped off. And the last one, number 9, weird or inconsistent use of margins or spacing. This could be margin or padding, depending on how people use it. So this could be that, imagine a longer scrolling page that have clearly different sections. And sometimes there's like a lot of space between those sections, and sometimes the sections are almost tucked together. This could also be like between paragraphs of text. Sometimes there's a lot, sometimes there's not. So just inconsistency in how you use space, white space, margins, and stuff like that on that web page can create sort of uneasy, distracting design. It hurts the reading pace because sometimes I don't know if this text is supposed to continue or if two sections, there was not enough space between, they're tucked too close together, but in fact they are a different topic entirely, but because they are so close, I might just kind of continue reading. So it hurts the pacing of the website. In other words, to create rules, create, again, consistent margins and use those across the website consistently. Okay, so those were the few points. Why is it good to have a website for your business? Like I said, I recommend if you have a business, all of you should have a website. It doesn't have to be like the most amazing website immediately. Something clean, simple, consistent, and something that lists clearly what you do. If you have difficulty of figuring out what kind of text or what you should write on your website, one good book on this, well, this book is not entirely on this topic, but there is something about this in very sort of simply understandable ways. Donald Miller's Story Brand. There's one chapter about what you should put on your website. He breaks it down to a super simple stuff. Sometimes I almost feel like it's oversimplification, but I know that because he knows what he talks about, I trust him. So that's a good reading for anyone who's looking for more information, especially on the messaging on your website. Okay, that was it. Oh, and of course, we ended with the 9 most common design errors that I frequently see on people's websites. So that was it for this Wednesday. Sorry, it's Thursday, this Thursday. As always, if you have questions, post them here. If you're watching a replay, come say hi so I can come say hi back and be like, yay, someone's watching my video. And of course, if you have ever any questions, post a group, post this video or comment this video. And as always, happy branding.